Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after, disappointing to Jets fans, I would say. Maybe not in this building. It seemed like one of the nights where this was one of those half and half nights where half the building was Leafs fans, half the building was Jets fans. I know that drives some people absolutely crazy. It was good to see that this was the first sellout at Canada Life Centre since pre-pandemic times. Absolutely phenomenal to see that, and that's what we were hoping for. I know that I think we talked after the last broadcast when they played the Vegas Golden Knights that I thought that maybe this would be the conditions that would get us one of those sellouts that we would really like. We'd like it to get back to that. We'd like that to be the standard at Canada Life Centre, just because, it's so much more fun when everybody's involved. Speaking of everyone getting involved, I know that you absolutely love to take the piss out of Ken and I in this show. We love that you do. Every once in a while, we got to take the piss out of the audience. I'm going to do that right now. I got to say this. I noticed the bounce back in numbers that we had. So game one, great numbers for the show. They're all great numbers, but big numbers after that Rangers victory. Then they go and they lose to Dallas, and I've already teased the chat room about how after a win that, plan the Stanley Cup parade, and after a loss, tear everything down. But the numbers go down a little bit during a loss, and I gotta say, I'm calling people out here. You know who you are. All the people, the Tracy O'Kraniks, Crystal's here, In Bones We Trust. You're here. I'm not talking to you. Well, who I am talking to are the people who aren't picking up on the podcast after the losses. I'm going to say this, Kenny and Rennyites, if you know these people, if you know who they are, when you see them in the streets, boo them, hiss them. Ken and I are going to get red, scarlet K&R symbols made up so that you can put them on stickers so that you could do the old throw the scarlet lettered K&R sticker on their back. So you know that those people are the no-shows when it's the losses, but they're only here for the good times. What's the saying? It's like, if you don't love me during my losses, you don't deserve me during my wins. That's what we're talking about here. So listen, if you want to give a wake up to anyone out there, if you don't see them here now, if you don't see them in the chat room and you notice that they're skipping out after the losses, listen, public shaming, it's a great tool for this kind of stuff. We're going to get into the game. Usually I do a little bit of a rant, but that I will take as my rant, and we'll get more of the game in there. I miss my guy. I miss my guy, Ken. I want him in the show. I want to bring him in now. And more than anything, I just miss that music. So here comes Kenny. Kenny, my man, great to see you. You're looking good as well. I got to tell you, I got a little bit of a shout out earlier on for how I'm looking. I love this tie. It's a Frank Vittorio special, no doubt. I was downstairs and someone referred to Kevin Sawyer as me, and there's times he says it happens, somewhat often, and the same thing will happen to me. One of the reasons may just be he also is dressed by our main man Frank and Vittorio Rossi, and is a sharp-looking dude all the time. I walk in, I see him, he's always dressed to the nines, and he said he went in, and Frank gave him the old "Sean, it's good to see you" thing, which he did. Frank had done the same thing to me. Frank's dressing so many important people, it's got to be hard to keep them all straight. But Kevin always looks like $1 million, and he has got us looking like $1 million. If you want to look like the sharp-dressed people in this town, I've said in the past before, you like the way Scott Oak looks like on his broadcasts. Frank is his guy as well. Go check out Frank and tell him Kenny and Renny sent you. So happy to have them on board. Ken, free form here. What'd you see tonight?
Well, it was an interesting tilt for sure. Great atmosphere, no doubt about that. A lot of blue in the arena. A lot of maple leaf blue as well, so that led to a little bit of a dueling pianos type of atmosphere. The Leafs had a little bit more to cheer about than the Jets in the game itself, but a fun tilt, a little bit of spice, Sean, which is one thing that we've been seeing in this series so far. And I was speaking with Luke Fox, our colleague out of Toronto, before the game today. Would love to see those guys play each other a little bit more often, don't you think? I mean, maybe the North Division was too much, but I want a wild card scenario here. I want a Major League Baseball wild card scenario where you face other teams. Rivalry. I want a rivalry inclusion for this. These teams need to play each other more often. It's fun when they get together. A lot of controversy might be a little bit too strong, but
I don't think so.
No, maybe not. Okay.
No, I don't think so. Listen, we'll get into it, but like some of the responses that we heard, listen, I don't think if you're a Jets fan, you see this game having gone the way it went for any other reason than officiating. And I think if you're talking to the Jets players in the dressing room, I think they feel the same way. I mean, that's what I got. Didn't you?
Yes. I mean, we're also here to make sure that the fans have a vested interest in a lot of that commentary, so we're here to sort of stabilize most of the time. But there's no doubt that
I'm here to inflame.
You're here to inflame. Okay, well, I'm here to report on what we heard. So what we heard was a very measured Josh Morrissey saying that he's been around long enough to know that you can't worry too much about the calls. We heard Pierre-Luc Dubois basically stop himself on two separate occasions when he was about to continue his commentary when asked about a couple of plays in question, including the hit from behind by Rasmus Sandin on Cole Perfetti that resulted in a Pierre-Luc Dubois minor penalty, and also the David Kampf goal, which was scored after Wayne Simmons sets a subtle pick at the blue line, and that knocked over Mason Appleton. And eventually Wayne Simmons with a nice drop pass to David Kampf in the slot, and that was the GWG, was it not? Yeah, it was. That was the
yes,
that was the G-dub. So
yeah.
And also too, the Jets also did not like the call against Josh Morrissey. I mean, I think that, to me, that's the worst of the bunch of the calls. I mean, this is a clean hit. A defenseman pinches down. I thought it was, it's very close, but I thought it was fairly obvious that Nick Robertson touched the puck, and he was smoked by Josh Morrissey, who kept his shoulder down, made sure there was not head contact, yet was still called for interference. And Sean, here's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter to me if what they call, but if you're the official there, you cannot call Morgan Rielly for unsportsmanlike conduct. You either call it instigating or you don't call anything at all. You can't even that up and then say, oh, well, it's even up, but I don't think it was bad enough to give Morgan Rielly the 10-minute misconduct that comes with the instigator penalty, right? Don't you think that that's absolutely absurd?
I do.
So don't call the unsportsmanlike call.
Yeah. So are you done? I want to go through the things that I thought were egregious. Now, I've long stated on this.
I'm not done, but you can go.
Okay, keep going. No, keep going.
No, I'm done for now. I'm just kidding. No, it's totally good.
Okay,
and I'll also, one final thing, just to put the bow on it. Hey, I'm not saying if those calls go the Jets' way, they win the game. If you score one goal, you don't win many hockey games. And right now, we'll get into it a little bit more, but I'm turning the buffet over to you. But the most important thing for the Jets, they didn't score enough. They didn't make Samsonov had to play well, yes, but right now the Jets aren't dangerous enough offensively. We knew it was going to take some time, but right now the offense is not giving them enough, and that's been the biggest issue in the 3 losses.
Well, we have to dig into that even deeper.
For sure.
I agree with you. I think, if you want to be that team that says we lost tonight because of the refs, or if you want to be the fan base that says that, you better be the fan base of a team that made some kind of push, an offensive push to get themselves back into that game. We didn't see that tonight. That's another issue. We'll get into that. But I'm going to go through the 3 things that I think that Jets fans may think are egregious. And I've got a lot in there for the fans who, so for the fans who seem to think that I take take joy in things not going well for the Jets, or always kind of take like a little bit of an anti-Jet stance. Some people will say that. I'm going to give you a little bit of juice here so that you can live off of that. But I'm also going to give you some stuff the other way. So let's start with the juice, Ken. I said I like to, when I see a fire, I like to walk by and I like to pull the gas tank out of my back pocket and give it a little squirt. You know what I'm saying? But the Mason Appleton interference call that many people believe was missed. I'm going to say this: it was an interference call, but I also think, it was an interference penalty. Should have been called, but I also think it wasn't called because I think Mason Appleton dove afterwards. I think he went down a little bit too easy. He hammed it up when he went down, and I think what happened was the official looked at the play and would have started to call a penalty, but then he saw that the player was going down a little bit too easy and a little bit too dramatically, and thought to himself, well, maybe that was an interference. Maybe Mason Appleton purposely skated into the guy in an attempt to draw a penalty, because the way, I'm telling you, this is what I saw, and you get to go on this afterwards, or maybe we'll do it on each individual point so you can counter this. But I thought that he hammed it up. I thought there was a little bit of acting going on there, and I think that kept the call from happening. I know he was really upset afterwards. He clearly made it plain and simple to the ref that he wasn't happy with how things went after that. But I think that's one of those plays that if he fights through that check, that obvious check, it ends up getting called. And even if it doesn't get called, he remains in the play if he fights to stay up. He didn't fight to stay up. I think he went down too easy. And I think that's why that call didn't get called. Clearly you disagree.
Well, if he would have stayed down, he wouldn't have got his stick on the puck. He didn't lay down and flop. He still got a piece of the pass before it got to Simmons. So,
well, he kept going afterwards, but he flopped. I
don't know. To me, I didn't think he saw him coming. I disagree with you on that point. I'm not going to say vehemently, but I didn't see him. I didn't see him. Oh, well, Turd Ferguson, obviously. He's obviously your favorite requester so far.
Turd Ferguson has shots on the list, the top of the list of Renny's.
Yeah, exactly. I did not see him look over his shoulder looking for someone. I don't think he saw him there.
And you know what? Doug Zarowski makes a good point here. Then call the interference and the embellishment, right? I agree with this entirely. So you're right. It's still. I'm not saying it wasn't a mess up by the officials. I'm saying I think the explanation of why they didn't call it was because the officials thought there was embellishment, and that made them question making the call, which is why the call never happened.
Well, I mean, I thought the interference on Morris, not the one on the hit on Robertson, the other interference call on Morrissey 61 seconds into the power play, Yarncroke ran right into him. I mean, that was the exact same idea, and Morrissey definitely didn't look over his shoulder to set a pick there either. So to me, I think if you call one, you call both. Same thing here. If you call DeMello for boarding on Marner, then you call Sandin on Perfetti. I mean, sorry, I'm turning the floor back to you to inflame the masses, but I didn't see Appleton flop. If he had flopped, he would not have been able to get a stick on the puck. I'm with Rick Bowness on this one. The Jets were in a pretty good defensive position when that zone entry started. Appleton gets knocked down. All of a sudden, it becomes an odd man situation. And then on the way back, Mark Scheifele hustles back, but he kind of over pursues the play on Simmons, and then the drop pass goes to Kampf, and he kind of caught Dylan DeMello kind of in between. I thought that, I mean, maybe it might have been tough for him to get through to get there, but I just don't think the Jets played that entire play very well. But they were, like, this is what Rick always talks about. When there's a breakdown or a turnover, this I wouldn't even call a breakdown, but when a player gets taken out, it sort of led to the structure kind of falling apart a little bit.
Yeah. So let's move on from that to the next play. And the thing that I think fans are going to have the biggest issue with, and it's the Josh Morrissey hit against Nick Robertson. And you've touched on this. Terrible call. Absolutely terrible call. There's no contact to the face. Nick Robertson touches the puck. This is an atrocious call, and it's funny because it's one of those plays that, because of players reaching for a puck, this is actually funny. The other night, Ken, I think I told you I was out playing with my old senior hockey team, and a good buddy of mine, Mikey Gruinski, was playing on the same team as me, and there was a pass that went up the middle, and I reached for it, and I looked up, and we were kind of like in each other's trolley tracks, and I saw that look in his face where he was like, "It's you or me," and he just totally laid me out on the same team. But like when you reach for a puck like that, you put yourself in a really vulnerable position. And so Nick Robertson was reaching for the puck. He's in a vulnerable position, and Josh Morrissey goes and gets him. I love his explanation afterwards. Look, as a defender in that position, you've got two choices. You go for the man or you go for the puck. He went for the man. He didn't catch him in the face. There was no head contact there. It was right on the chest. This is a perfect hit. This is what the game needs more of. But because he was reaching for the puck, it's one of those situations that looks dangerous, which is why the Leafs come running in, because it looks like a dangerous hit. I think it's why the call happened. So here we go. I'm willing to say I still think, I don't agree with you. I still think Mason Appleton hammed it up a little bit, and that's why the call didn't happen. But this is also a situation where the refs didn't call a penalty based on perception, even when it was a penalty. And this is a situation where they called a penalty that wasn't a penalty, again, based on perception. The way that the refs perceived this game, they were off tonight. There is no world in which that hit by Josh Morrissey should have been a penalty. It was a ridiculous call. I think you're going to agree with me on that one.
Oh, I already said it was a ridiculous call. And I mean, good on Josh for, trying to keep level-headed with it, but I don't like that call at all. And I'll go a step further. That call is a perception call because they think they missed the one on Marner, and because Marner went bananas on the bench and left his helmet off and was yelling at the refs. That's why a call like that gets made, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm shaking my head at running man's comment here. There's no way, there's no world in which Josh Morrissey would get suspended for that.
No chance. And it's a bad call. I mean, but this is the problem. When you miss one like that early, and then you miss another boarding, and then you miss something here, I just think that it's about, this is, Sean, this is like baseball. When both dugouts are barking at the umpire, it's a bad day for the umpire.
Yeah.
Today, both benches were all over the officials because I'm not saying it was favoritism for one way or the other. Both teams were sour with the officiating. And when that happens, again, everybody has a rough night. And I just think this was a bit of a rough night for the guys in stripes. I mean, both ways. But also, I'll say this. As a game goes on, refs have an opportunity to try and make up for the things they've done that they may not have got. A game is a living organism, so it's never too late for redemption if you're the officials. So I get your point. I'm not willing to just chalk it up to the refs having an off night. They, in that position, when they called that penalty on Josh Morrissey, had an opportunity after that to say, okay, we've set a standard. If that Josh Morrissey hit that is a little bit borderline is a penalty, then we have to keep that standard going forward. And they entirely forget that standard when Cole Perfetti gets hit from behind. Now, this is a hit on the numbers. Listen, if you don't want to call that call, if you're a ref who's saying I'm going to let him play tonight, then maybe I could see. I still think it's not the right call, but I could see, well, if the ref wasn't calling anything all night, then I can see how he maybe missed that one. Maybe. But after you call Josh Morrissey on that hit, how do you entirely ignore the Perfetti situation and then have the Jets walk out of that situation down? It ends up costing them. You're right. The officials had a terrible time here tonight. And I've been saying this the entire time we've been on this. I never like to pin a game on the officials, and I won't pin the game on the officials. I think the Jets needed to push back harder than they did, especially offensively, which we're going to get into. But that said, I'm not taking away from the fact that there weren't very, very key misses. There were very key misses, a number of them that the officials made during this game that led to the outcome of this game. And I just absolutely loved it. I want you to dig in a little bit more, but like the comments from the players after the game, I set the scene for Pierre-Luc Dubois trying to answer about his thoughts on the officiating, because it was like borderline uncomfortable. Take it away, Ken. Oh man, it's the first question, where did the game turn for you? Well, hard to pinpoint. That second goal obviously hurts. Appy gets ellipse, like 5-second pregnant pause. Yeah, that second goal. And then he stops the sentence. You're like, yeah, the second goal when this happened. And then, the follow-up question is, well, all of the emotion, calls don't carry away, how difficult is it to manage? Well, it's something that we're kind of used to. I mean, I don't go at their guy if he doesn't hit Perfetti from behind. That's the second goal. Appy, yeah, I don't want to get fined. Sorry, you need the pause in there, and you need the absolute look of disdain from Pierre-Luc Dubois. Like, he wants you to finish the sentence, but we already saw what happened. We need him to finish the sentence. But I thought it was incredible restraint. And again, I have no problem with Perfetti or with Dubois taking a minor penalty there. I mean, you stand up for your line mates. I mean, we see it all the time. That's not like, see, this is going to open up another rant for me. I understand Morgan Riley's objective on dropping the gloves there. You should not have to fight after every single big hit in the NHL. It's absurd. Yeah, great. Stand up for your teammate, right on. But if your teammate goes with his head down and gets rocked, you shouldn't have to fight if you lay him out. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
It is ridiculous. I want to get this in. Let's go to the Lamplighter of the game. Before we do that, let's bring it up. I know that I saw Eric Horleifson was in the chat. Well, I'm glad you're here, Eric, because you won our Lamplighter 8-pack of Amber Ale from Trans-Canada Brewing for chipping in and talking about the Lamplighter in our last show. I just want to point out Eric's comment came in the chat room in the show, so if you want to leave your Lamplighter comments there, that just automatically enters you for the possibility of winning an 8-pack of beer. The show before that, the winner came from a DMing me on Twitter, so that's a way to get a hold of us. If you want to watch this, I already saw that some people were trying to set up the fact that they may not be here for losses as being like, well, I check it out the next day. Well, not enough of you checked it out the next day to know that some people aren't just skipping out after losses. But if you're checking it out the next day on YouTube, you can leave your comments on YouTube. Anywhere we can see it, let us know. And then at that point, we'll try to get a hold of you, or you need to send us your information so we can get you your stuff. We're just in the process of finalizing how we're going to get these things to you. And once they do, everything is going to go out. But I want you. I need this. I need it. I crave it. I crave to know what the chat room's Lamplighter of the game is. So start leaving those comments in here. We want to see it. And in the meantime, Kenny, give me your Lamplighter of the game.
Yeah, Pierre-Luc Dubois is the runner-up in the Lamplighter of the game. I'm going to the first Leafs goal that tied the game, Sean. It was during the power play. David Gustafson actually makes a really smart read initially to pressure Austin Matthews along the boards. But Matthews is so strong that he spins off Gustafson. He doesn't get the seal, and Matthews makes an exceptional second effort to get the puck into the slot to William Nylander. Nylander gets it over to Tavares for his first of two, and to me, that's my Lamplighter of the game. It was an exceptional second effort, and it was a play where the Jets actually were so close to clearing the zone. There were only 10 seconds left in that power play. They had done such a good job on it, but they didn't get the clear that they needed. Matthews makes an exceptional second effort play, and then Nylander to Tavares for just an absolute beauty. I mean, it wasn't a highlight reel in the end-to-end variety, but I thought there were a couple of really exceptionally smart plays. And again, it's funny, we talked about Austin Matthews. It wasn't a signature game for Matthews, but in a game where he wasn't as noticeable as usual, he still had 4 shots on goal, 13 shot attempts, and 2 assists. So, I mean, that's an impactful game no matter how you slice it. I mean, a lot of people are on Matthews for only having 1 goal this year. Well, he had made an exceptional play. He made another smart play he got one on the up. 3 assists. Never mind, not 2. He also had the shot that Tavares tipped in for the other power play goal, then set up the empty netter. So 3-point night for Austin Matthews, and on a night where he wasn't as noticeable as you would expect in terms of the highlight reel variety. But he caught my eye on the highlight reel, and that's why his setup is the Lamplighter of the game.
Yeah, it's funny, those really, really good players, you can think that they haven't played well, and all of a sudden it's just, I mean, I had a slight experience like that playing senior hockey when I was with the Lactabani Blues. We were playing against Pat Falloon's team, and I remember it was a 7-6 game that they won, and I walked out of that game and I was like, you know what, yeah, I know they beat us and they put up some points, but at least we kind of shut Pat Falloon down. And then I looked at the score sheet and he had 6 points. It's just like the good players make it look easy, right? And he had one of those. Sorry, Ken, I'm just taking care of something. Someone's getting out of control in the
okay, sorry
in
about that.
the chat room here. So I'm going to put that in a timeout. That's not happening again. No one's using that language or talking to anyone in our chat room like that. Go somewhere else if you want to do that kind of stuff. And I just want to get back to the Lamplighter and say, Ken, I'm just gonna say this. I went down, and I've talked to you about this before, and we talked about it on some of the other shows. You know, wherever I am, I'm going and I'm trying to give me your local IPA. I like a citrusy IPA. And my favorite IPA that I've ever had before was called a Westbound and Down that I got in Denver from a local brewery there. I went and made sure I got some on this trip, and I had it. Not as good as I remember it being. It was good, no doubt. It was good, but you know what? I had a cold IPA from our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing. We love to talk about the Lamplighter here. They've got so many other choices. Their cold IPA, lights out. It's kind of changed things. You know, you get a memory about something, and then you go back to that memory, and it's maybe you've experienced stuff that it kind of makes it so that the memory was a little bit built up in your mind. That's what happened. The cold IPA changed the way I thought about that. So
there you go.
Just want to give a shout out to the folks at Trans-Canada Brewery. Once again, Eric Horleifson, you get our 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale for our 5th show of the year. Thank you so much for doing that. All of you out there, chip in, give us your Lamplighters. I've already had some people give me their Lamplighters before the game started, which is good. Thanks for being prompt about that. But we want to hear from you. Also, if you want to go check out the tap room for Trans-Canada Brewing at 11290 Kennison, absolutely gorgeous space. Ken and I are finalizing 4 events that we are going to hold there. There's going to be live viewings of Kenny and Renny where we want to have people down there. We want to share the day with everybody down there. So why don't you go check out their tap room and see what you are in store for when you come check out Kenny and Renny live. It's going to be absolutely great stuff. And Ken, before we move on too, I want you to give us your Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. Let me steal this.
You should take it. Yeah.
Lying on his belly down on the ground, stops the puck. They're trying to jam it in. He thinks he's lost it in this direction, wide open net. He looks for it. It's not there. I'm always kind of blown away with goaltenders like Hellebuyck who have the calmness in that situation. Like, he's thinking that the puck has squirted out and is lying in the crease for a wide open net, and he looks there, and instead of panicking and just looking around, he calmly looks and is like, I thought it was there. Nope, it's not there. In terms of the puck squirts out the other way, and he makes the save on his belly. To me, that was the Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. Absolutely great stuff from a great goaltender who didn't get the best of the score tonight, but once again showed us what he's capable of. Thanks to the Johnston Group and their got you covered play of the game. You won't find 2 businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits, proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable, so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and Teladoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. Once again, if you want coverage the way that Hellebuyck covers the Jets in a situation like that, go check out the Johnston Group. All right, Ken, let's move on to. Hey, I wanted to get into this topic. No one's talking about it, and usually we are forced into talking about Logan Stanley. I haven't seen a lot of Logan Stanley conversations. I will say this. You touched on this heated rivalry early on. I'm going to say this up front, and I want you to take it from there, and I'll tell you what I saw. But I would have expected to notice Logan Stanley a lot more in this game based on who the Leafs put into this lineup and based on how those players they put into this lineup played. I didn't think we saw nearly enough of Logan Stanley.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. He had a bit of a tough go to start the game, a couple of missed exits, but had a few crisper and cleaner exits as the game went on. But Sean, you're right. I mean, for Logan Stanley, part of the reason Logan Stanley's in the lineup is to kill penalties and to be a physical presence. when you're going up against, I mean, he fought Wayne Simmons last year and had the victory sign, but there was no pushing or shoving, or in a game where Wayne Simmons was looking for someone at all times. Logan Stanley needs to get involved with a guy like Wayne Simmons. I'm not saying he has to fight him, but you got to get in his face. I mean, you're there to help neutralize a guy like Wayne Simmons. And I didn't see that part of it enough. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that Logan was bad against Vegas. I mean, people are on him for the 3-on-1. That's a perfect play by Riley Smith, and then a perfect shot by Jack Eichel. So the only thing I thought that Logan could have done better on that goal, he was a little bit tentative getting to the middle, but if it's a 3-on-1, if you make a bad decision, it's going to be a backdoor tap-in. So I didn't mind Logan's game today overall, but he needs to be more involved physically. I mean, that's why that's why he was supposed to be in the lineup. We'll see what happens on Monday night, because, Sean, we know this too. The St. Louis Blues complexion of their team is changing a bit. They still play an in-your-face physical game. So again, I think that's an area where he needs to continue to get a little bit more consistent at, and getting a little bit more physical in terms of what he brings to the table on that front. But yeah, we should switch. You want to?
No, I want to weigh in on this. I really want to weigh in on
sure.
this. Logan Stanley, and again, I know people are saying that, and I think they're right. There are bigger issues at play than Logan Stanley here tonight. But I take a look at this game, and I think both you and I think we're in agreement that coming out of camp, we had Samberg ahead of Logan Stanley. I had Ville Heinola ahead of Logan Stanley. The only thing that made sense to me of Ville Heinola going down is he needed to play, so they didn't need him sitting in the press box. Whereas they're okay with a guy like Capobianco or Stanley, or it does seem Dylan Samberg not playing. Ville Heinola needs to play, so it made sense for me to that happen. But it didn't make sense for me that Logan Stanley was in the top 6 based on what I saw from camp. When we asked Rick Bowness about what he saw from him and why he was in, one of the biggest reasons was, well, A, was penalty killing, like you were talking about, but B, his size and what he can do with that size. And we've seen in the past, we've seen examples of Logan Stanley when he gets engaged, when he gets gritty, when he gets a little bit mean out there. He's too big to not have an effect on the game. Listen, I talked to an NHL player that tangled with him, an NHL player that is a really tough guy. I don't know if I've brought this up on the show before, but his eyes got like saucers when I brought him up and asked him about that, a little bit of a tussle that he had with him. And Logan Stanley is a tough guy who can do things that other tough guys are not able to handle. And that's what I heard. When Rick Bowness was saying this is why we've got Logan Stanley in the lineup, that's what I heard. I think that's what they're waiting for. There is no more perfect scenario to bring that out of Logan Stanley than into the game tonight. This is what you need him for. Never mind that the fact that Simmons and Clifford were in this game probably because of Logan Stanley.
Right.
So at some point when you've got Simmons going out and creating an effect on the game, which he did, and Clifford going out and having an effect on that game, I needed to see a counter. I needed to see a counter from Logan Stanley, especially because in my mind, he's fighting for a job. If Logan Stanley wants to keep his job, he had an opportunity tonight to show what he is capable of doing with his size that probably nobody else on that Jets decor, other than maybe Brendan Dillon, is capable of showing. I didn't see anything near that tonight. And to your point, I don't need him running out and answering the bell. I don't need him most definitely, fighting Wayne Simmons or Clifford or something like that. Although, I'm sorry, I don't mind seeing it. I think that's what Simmons was trying to elicit. And I think there was a little bit of him trying to stay away from Simmons. And I think the Leafs gained courage from it. If you take a look at some of the games that we've seen from these teams in the past, the way that the Jets fought back, that Simmons was stymied. Clifford was stymied in those situations. And they were getting frustrated and putting themselves in the penalty box. And then the Jets were capitalizing on those penalties. And that's how they were affecting the game. They were winning games because they were handling the frustration more. There was nothing that frustrated those players tonight. And I think of one specific play when Wayne Simmons went and got in Mark Scheifele's kitchen, and Scheifele had to stand up and kind of go. There was a little bit of a tussle. People got together. Logan Stanley was on the ice, and he was one of the players that was not engaged in that situation. One of the very few players on the ice that stayed out of that situation. I know Rick Bowness said after the game, this is a team that is always going to have each other's back. He says this is a team that every single player is going to have the backs of the players on the ice. That's not what I saw tonight. I saw Wayne Simmonds acting without acting in retribution from what he's seen in the past and without check. I don't think he was checked here tonight. The players that did try to check people, Pierre-Luc Dubois, give him credit. We should talk about him in the game he had, because it sure seems like he's rolling around, but we know Pierre-Luc Dubois can have that effect in the game. As soon as Cole Perfetti gets hit, he's in there. I did not see enough of that, and I would venture to guess that Logan Stanley, his coaches, would have wanted more than they saw from him tonight. Ken, you want to go in a different direction? Let's go into the lack of scoring.
Yeah, just one quick one. Someone complained that someone should have to answer for the Wayne Simmonds hit on Scheifele where it resulted in a penalty. That was a nothing burger to me. That was a nothing play.
Okay, I'm glad Joe brought this up, because this is a good point. Because I had wondered, and I was talking with some other journalists up in the press box, and I'd wondered this point. I'd wondered if he'd been told by his coaches that you stay out of this, right? We need to get back into this game. Simmonds took a dumb penalty, which I agree with Joe from Winnipeg.
That was also a terrible call. That was an absolutely terrible call. Scheifele two-handed him back. That was a terrible call also.
Regardless, though, if Scheifele gets away with a retaliation,
sure,
then you don't want to be the next guy who comes in and retaliates. So I've got all the time in the world for what Joe from Winnipeg is saying. What I don't have time for is this guy just went after your star player, a guy who wears an A, the best player on your team historically for this Winnipeg Jets team. I know some people will argue and jump up right away and say Kyle Connor is surpassed Mark Scheifele. Maybe there's an argument to be had there. That's not the argument we're having. Mark Scheifele is the Jets' best player, or one of the Jets' best players. He wears an A. A fourth line player from the other team went after him. Regardless of what happened, I don't need Logan Stanley to go over there and even things up, but go over and say something to the guy. Go over and tell him, that's not happening again. And if you think it's going to happen again, we can continue this conversation as the game goes on. There was no interaction. Pierre-Luc Dubois goes in, there's an interaction, there's a message sent. You're not going to hit Cole Perfetti like that. You're not going to hit my lineup. There was no message sent. There was no messages being sent from Logan Stanley to the Toronto Maple Leafs on this night, on a night where I saw time and time again the Toronto Maple Leafs trying to send a message. The Jets have seemingly, in my opinion, come out on top of this battle with the Toronto Maple Leafs, where things get a little bit chippy because they've handled it better. I didn't like the way they handled it tonight. I thought they were flat handling it, and I think that's why you get the flat performance they got from them. You finish up, please. No, good. Quick one. Just some folks have been asking. We don't know the severity of the Dylan Samberg injury, other than it's been referred to as day-to-day and bad timing. Dylan Samberg had a solid game, then he had to leave the lineup because he was hurt. I mean, he had a very solid game against the Avalanche, and then he hasn't been able to play. So that's a tough go for him. Yeah, no, Sean, I mean, for me, I would even go a step further. I needed to notice Logan Stanley in the physical nature department well before 3 minutes into the third period. I mean, that's my bigger issue, and I know that's what you're saying also. Yeah. Okay, let's switch gears because we don't want to beat on that one too much. Let's get into the lack of scoring. I know someone brought it up here. Doug Thuraski, great comment here. You don't win many games only scoring one goal. You touched on it. We touched on it on our chat. You and I did. If you want to go check it out, Luke Fox, the Toronto reporter, Ken and I broke down the game tonight. It's one of the things that we talked about. Clearly, in my mind, we've seen this. The Jets have now fallen below 500. I felt like they weren't doing that bad this year. And then, Ken, one thing that really stood out to me is after 5 games, they've got 4 points. We take a look at what's happening down in Minneapolis with the Minnesota Wild, and they've had a dumpster fire start to the season. Well, after tonight, they're only 1 point behind the Jets. I'm looking at Minnesota and I'm thinking, geez, what a terrible start. And they're only 1 point behind the Jets right now. But the one thing that we've seen that I think has been fairly consistent in their losses this year is the Jets aren't putting up enough goals. They're not clicking. I asked Josh Morrissey if there's a frustration. He said no. He did say something about maybe the idea that they're trying to, as they learn this new system, once they get locked in more on the new system, their offense will come. But I mean, do you have any doubt that at least in the losses they've incurred this year, scoring has been an issue?
It's been hard to score. It was what I've seen for the Winnipeg Jets right now. 5-on-5 power play. We talked about it on the hit. I mean, it's an obvious thing that the Jets missed Nikolai Ehlers, but the Jets missed this just in. The Jets missed Nikolai Ehlers. I mean, third game in a row. He will miss Monday's game for sure, and then we'll see what happens on that road trip. But the Jets are not getting enough primary offense. We talked about the secondary offense after the top line got off to a good start, but the top line's been quiet. I mean, people will say, oh, well, Appleton got those goals. Well, Appleton got those goals when he was not playing with his top line mates. Yeah, he got them with Adam Lowry. Yep. So I saw effort from Mark Scheifele. I mean, this is what I would say if you're the Jets here. So Scheifele, 3 shots, 7 shot attempts. Kyle Connor, 3 shots, 6 shot attempts. Mason Appleton, 3 shots, 4 attempts. So they did have some opportunities today, but they are not converting. And I know, Sean, you're big on body language. On one of those power plays, I mean, Kyle Connor is a very intense person, but in a quiet manner. I saw him bang his stick one time during one of the power plays. I know you saw it too. It was during the first period. He's not getting the same kind of looks that we're used to seeing. He did get one really good one-timer that went off the shoulder. I don't think Samsonov saw it. It was a positioning save. It was right off his shoulder. I don't think he saw it. It was a great shot, but that's one where Kyle Connor says to himself, that's a shot that I need to bury. It was a great shot. I think that the goalie just got lucky in that scenario. But we're not seeing Kyle Connor get as many dangerous, high-danger chances as we saw in the early going last year. And again, it's only 5 games. But at a time when the Jets are missing Nikolai Ehlers, they need their top goal scorer, Kyle Connor, who had 47 last year. They need him clicking, and they need Mark Scheifele clicking. If they don't, it's going to be difficult, especially when the power play is, again, struggling might be too strong, but the Leafs power play scored twice. The Jets power play got nothing. So that's a big difference in the hockey game. And I think the Jets' top guys need to get going a little bit more. On the flip side, Pierre-Luc Dubois, who had a bit of a quieter start, now he's going offensively. So they need to get those guys in the top 6 going at the same time, at least until a time where the third and fourth lines get rolling. Yes, I know that the fourth line got the game winner against the Rangers and that Gagne has one on the power play, but we haven't seen as much cohesion from the third line. Sean, we were talking about this on our way down. Morgan Barron is a guy who's shown well at times, but he's a guy that needs to get chip something in offensively. The Jets made a little bit of a shift today. They gave Sam Gagne a chance on the third line, hoping that he might be able to jumpstart that unit in terms of some offense, move Saku Menelainen down. So it's an issue. I mean, we talked about this a lot last year. On the nights where the Jets only score 2 or fewer, they don't win as often, right? I mean, I think Appleton's effort has been good. I just think that I'd be curious. I mean, I think it was Merle who said it. I'd be curious at what point do the Jets consider moving Kyle Connor back with Pierre? Like now that Dubois is going, do you consider going Connor with Dubois? And this is not.
Well, let's get it.
And I say this because I think that Cole Perfetti and Mark Scheifele. I don't say this because I don't think that Mark Scheifele can get Kyle Connor going. He absolutely can. But right now, I think that Mark Scheifele and Cole Perfetti could play off one another as well. Sean, you talk about it. I mean, these guys had a great car ride together. They both like talking about the game a lot. I think that we know Dubois is rolling right now. You got to get this. We had this debate all year last year. When do you break something up for the greater good rather than keeping a line together that's playing well together? Right now, I think Kyle Connor needs a boost, and I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois could help him out. And I also think that it might help get Mark Scheifele going again after he scored those three goals in the first 2 games.
So it's hard to talk about this because Ehlers is out. It makes it a difficult conversation. But one of the things that I had talked about earlier on that I was wondering how it was going to turn out with that top line is it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. But with Ehlers and Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, you've got 3 players on the ice that probably are close to. I'm clearly Kyle Connor has scored more than those other players, so he's the most proficient goal scorer. But Mark Scheifele is a 30 goal scorer, right? He's a highly proficient goal scorer. We've seen enough from Nick Ehlers to know that Nick Ehlers, in my mind, no doubt has potential to be a 30 goal scorer. When you've got three guys who can score 30 goals on one line, that is an insane amount of scoring potential. You also have speed from all three of those players, and you also have passing ability from all three of those players. So it sounds like this perfect like cornucopia of skill and passing and hockey sense and shooting ability and nose for the net that is just going to end up just in an avalanche of goals scored. But I was wondering if maybe the idea that there's maybe a lack of definition of who does what on the line could cost them. I'm going to use an example. A guy like Mikko Rantanen is on that line when you put Gabriel Landeskog on a line with Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon. Mikko Rantanen's the passer on that line. No one is expecting Mikko Rantanen to score 40 goals. They're three phenomenal players, but there's a very defined role of what Mikko Rantanen does well for them. Same thing with Gabriel Landeskog. He's the guy, you saw it. If you were watching the Jets last year, you saw time and time again Gabriel Landeskog absolutely destroy the Jets by hanging out in the front of the net and banging stuff in. That was his role. And we all know what Nathan MacKinnon's role is. He can kind of do it all. He can pass, he can cut, he can shoot, he can score, he can do all those things like that. So you kind of had the one guy who does everything mixed with a guy who's very specifically a grinding guy to get pucks and score in the front of the net. And then a guy who's just a great setup man, right? Well, I was wondering if maybe there would be a little bit of confusion. Who's the scorer on that line? Well, right off the bat, Mark Scheifele put his hand up, right? 2 goals in his first game. Then he scores a goal in his next game. 2 games into the season, he's got 3 goals. And we talked about this, and I wondered about, the effort to put Kyle Connor out on the ice and get him that empty net goal the way that Rick Bowness did. I thought it was important. I still think it's important. It's most definitely important because it's his only goal so far this year. But when I see Kyle Connor, I've mostly seen him as a player that does a really good job of recognizing the strengths of his line mates and playing off those strengths, right? So Pierre-Luc Dubois, big guy, going to take the puck hard to the net. He's going to create space in the middle by drawing guys to him. Kyle Connor moves in, grabs that, moves into that vacuum, gets the puck, boom. If you give him a puck and he's open and it's him and the goaltender, I feel sorry for the goaltender. Usually it's going in the back of the net. If you think back to his days when he was with Scheifele and with Blake Wheeler, Blake Wheeler was the Mikko Rantanen kind of setup guy, right? Take everything off to the side, draw people in, freeze the defense. Kyle Connor knows how to get into that place where he opens up the passing lane and also finds quiet ice, but dangerous ice, gets the puck across, and it's in the back of the net. It's hard to talk about it again because Ehlers isn't there, but we haven't seen that. But what I'm seeing right now from Kyle Connor is I feel like he doesn't know where to go to do what he does best. He's not playing off of anything that's happening right now. And I feel that it's because there's some confusion as to what the role is of each player on that line, especially with Mason Appleton up there now. To your point, Mason Appleton has produced some offense. He didn't with that line. So we haven't seen those three come together as a top line. That is a massive, massive problem. And we have to take it in the direction that you just talked about. We know that he works well with Pierre-Luc Dubois. In fact, we said many times on this show, Ken, and I still believe it, the best iteration, the best version of Kyle Connor that we have ever seen is the Kyle Connor who played on a line with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Losing 3 games because you can't score, in my mind, especially when the first game that you did win was a 1-1 game going into, with under 5 minutes left, and then you score, a power play goal that's, a desperation penalty taken by the other team and an empty netter. That to me is essentially a 2-1 game. So the Jets squeezed out a 2-1 game in their first game. The second goal that they got was a goal from their fourth line. And then we'll kind of the outlier as it stands is the Colorado Avalanche game. But that's 4 games where the Jets' top guns really aren't getting going. That's enough for me. That's enough to think, okay, We've tried this. Nick Ehlers isn't coming back for the next couple of games. So because it's not working, maybe let's switch some things around. I see people talking about moving Gagne up. I love the idea of that. I'd like to experiment with that. But I personally think it's time. I think Kyle Connor is your most direct route to an offensive explosion. And as long as he's quiet the way he is right now, it's going to be hard for the Jets to win games no matter how well defensively they play, no matter how well they execute Rick Bowness's new system. Kyle Connor has to get going, and the idea of putting Pierre-Luc Dubois with him is the most, in my mind, the most obvious way to get him there because they played well together last year. Any beef with that?
No, that's why I suggested it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's do something. I want to go back to a conversation that you said that we were having on the way down, and I agree with. I'm going to tell Ken, or I'm going to say to you what I said behind the scenes to Ken. I take a look at Janssen Fjallby. I take a look at Morgan Barron. These are players that Ken mentioned. I take a look at Saku Menelainen. And this thought occurred to me while I was watching the game. I don't think in these 5 games, and I know Fjallby wasn't in the first one, so regardless of those players in these first 5 games, have we seen anything from them that was as impressive as what we saw from Reichel in his small addition last season? I think the answer is no.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far yet. I mean, like I said, I think there was one really good burst in a night on Dallas where the Jets weren't very good. Morgan Barron had a really good burst where he pulled away. He was even with the defenseman, kind of pulled away, got a partial break, got a good shot off. It's interesting. I'm trying to figure out what kind of player Morgan Barron's going to be. I mean, we saw a couple flashes. That game against Montreal last year when he had the 2 points, when he was playing up in the top 6. Is he going to be a secondary scoring kind of guy? I asked a scout that was sitting beside me in Colorado if he'd seen him play a physical game when he was down in the American League with the Hartford Wolfpack. He said yes, he had. I think Morgan Barron's in a situation where when you're trying to earn the trust of a coaching staff, sometimes you're leaning towards the defensive side of the game.
Cautionary, yeah.
And I would say, and I'm not saying it in a non-assertive way, I'm saying that Morgan Barron knows that in order to grow into an Andrew Kopp type of role, he needs to show that he can do the defensive stuff first. And so I would disagree with your premise that I haven't seen him flashing offensively. That's true. But I have seen him make some smart plays that lead me to think that the offensive part of the game could come eventually for him. But yeah, I mean, right now the Jets need. So I've seen opportunities. I'm not seeing a natural finisher, but I am seeing a guy who goes to the right spots. Do I see great chemistry with that line? No, that's why they changed the line a little bit. But and part of it was out of necessity with Appleton going up. But and the other guys. I mean, Menelainen, I've still liked what I've seen from him. But I mean,
nice hit tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really good physical play. But I mean, right now, and again, no one drives the Gus bus more than I do. But I mean, David's a guy that has some offense in his game, but it's not really showing a lot so far. I mean, he did have one nice play earlier on in the trip as well. But the Jets need more. I mean, no matter how we slice it, Sean, the Jets need more. I would just like to go to Julie here quickly. Julie, the reason why it wasn't Jansen Harkins, Dominic Toninato was called up because he's likely not going to be playing. He's going to be the 13th forward. Right now, Jansen Harkins is off to an incredible start for the Manitoba Moose, scored again this evening. So Harkins was asked to go down and sort of adopt more of a penalty-killing role. Yes, he's going to be a guy who gives you some offense at that level, but he's been asked to go down, kill some penalties, and get a little bit of offensive confidence going. You don't call Jansen Harkins up to be the 13th forward, but if the Jets are planning on potentially making a move and sitting down a guy like Janssen Fjallby or somebody else, then you get Harkins up and you insert him directly into the lineup when he's feeling confident. Toninato is up here because he can handle sitting out, and if he's called upon, he'll go in. But I don't think, and the same thing, like people going crazy about Brad Lambert should be brought up. Brad Lambert doesn't get called up to sit in the press box. No, not under any circumstance. And he needs more time, folks. More time. That I'm cautioning. Yes, he flashed at times against AHL competition. But Sean, to your point about Christian Reichel, I don't know how Reichel's played so far in the minors this year. Did he come in and I know what you're saying. You need someone to step up and be noticeable, and right now they need a few more guys to be noticeable.
There you go. And I mean, so this, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying about when you want to stay in the coach's good books, you got to be defensive first. I get that. And I get that means that you're not going to take a lot of risks offensively. You're not going to try to put the puck through your legs. You're not going to try a fancy move to go around a guy. Because if you do that and he chips the puck off your stick and goes the other way, that's the kind of stuff that gets you in the doghouse. So I'm not saying take those risks. But one time tonight, Morgan Barron the puck went to the net. There were 3 Leafs there, and he just skated right through them and went right to the goaltender, and he started something. That, to me, needs to be something that Saku Menelainen or Jonsson Fjallby and Morgan Barron, I need to see them doing that 4, 5, 6 times a game. It's no risk to do that. If you want to affect the outcome of a game, sure, play defense first. Don't go and try and flash skill and get burnt doing it. I'm not saying do that, but put your stamp on the game. And that's what I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing that line go out. No one's getting into anyone's kitchen. No one is going to the front of the net to create those little kind of energy plays where you're drawing back and forth. Like, those guys got to go out and they got to catch the coach's eye. They don't need to do it by scoring a big goal or skating through the entire team and roofing it top corner. They need to do it. They have to be defensively responsible, no doubt. But it is nothing to be defensively responsible and yet go to the hard areas of the other team and create havoc. And that's not being done. It's not being done, and I'll be honest, I'm surprised it's not being done yet, because that is typically the hallmark of a Rick Bowness coach Dallas Stars team, is that they don't need the most skilled guys, but the guys that they have go out and they put their stamp on a game. Those players in the bottom 6, people have been talking about it. I think there was a comment that I started earlier on about the middle 6. But that, to me, is what that line or those players down there are not achieving at this moment. And again, and I should bring this up, or I should tie this in, because I pointed out Logan Stanley, who I thought we need to see more. But tonight was also a perfect opportunity for those players to go in a heated rivalry where the Leafs were kind of trying to make something. Every third play, I saw every third shift, I felt like the Leafs were trying to get something going. I mean, that was a chance for that line to respond and say, "Listen, I'm here." Saku Menelainen is a big human being. He had an opportunity tonight to say, "Hey, I'm a new kid on the block here, and if you think you're going to push me around or any of my teammates, it's not going to happen." And I know there's going to be people who are disagreeing with what I'm saying because they don't like the fighting in hockey and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to learn how to play these kind of games where there's an edge and it gets edgier towards the playoffs, and you can make your mark as a young player by playing that style before you start scoring. For most players, offense is the last thing that you build into your game, and that's fine. But in the meantime, you got to make a play, and I just think I take a look at Reichel, and again, you were right, Ken. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying go get Reichel and put him on this team right now. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is I take a look at Reichel, and I think in that situation last year, he got an opportunity. He made something of it. I am not seeing those players make something of their opportunities so far this season.
Yeah, and just one quick one that I want to, when it comes to Morgan Barron, Sean, he's out against Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. So a lot of time, you're not going to see a lot of offensive flash when you're going up against two of the most skilled.
When the whistle goes, go give one of those guys a little bit of, glove to the face or something like that. Yes. You know what I mean? Getting those guys head.
I'm talking about the offensive element.
Right.
You're asking a lot of them. The other night, they were up against McKinnon at times. That's a tough ask, is all I'm saying. But yeah, you're right. Those guys need to they need more offense from everybody. Neil Pionk is the guy with 3 goals. Neil Pionk has 3 goals. Kyle Connor has 1. The Jets want to be active on the back end. They're going to need a little bit more from a lot of places. So, we'll see where it comes from. But, again, I don't think that it's the end of the world, but there are definitely a lot of areas that need to be improved. Structurally, the Jets gave up 1 5-on-5 goal today against the Leafs.
Yeah.
And it was by the 4th line. Here's my biggest problem with tonight, Sean. The Jets matchup game saw them get Scheifele and Connor out against the Leafs' 4th line, I would say more than I would maybe not regularly, but enough times that they should have been able to. The Jets' top line got outscored 1-0 by the fourth line. If that happens, you're not going to win a lot of hockey games, right? I mean, that's just those are facts. Those are facts.
Yeah. Geez, that hour went by fast. I wanted to just touch on something right here because we like to make sure that we are addressing the comments and the questions coming from the audience. I noticed SK, who I just had up there, said this way earlier in the show, and I wanted to address this. He says, I love this show, but we talk about who does what, and mostly what they don't do, and we know what needs to change. Can we affect change on this roster? It's a bad makeup of a team. I'm going to tell you this right now. We're not talking about this right now in the show. Ken, you can talk about whatever you want. The reason why I don't bring this into the show right now is this conversation that you're having. I'm not saying it's a legitimate conversation. We had this conversation in the offseason. Ken and I, Ken especially expected change to this roster in the offseason. I think most of the fan base did expect the exact same thing. But here's the deal. It didn't happen. And you've got a new coaching staff who've come into this season and are looking and saying, we are going to try and see what we have here with this lineup. And so to me, having this conversation would be moot because I don't think the Jets know what they have right now, A, with this lineup and its young players that we were just talking about, but B, with what Rick Bowness can do with this new lineup. I think that question, agree with it or not, Kevin Cheveldayoff decided to take this route where he basically ran it back. That's what he chose to do. And Rick Bowness's job now is to show Kevin Cheveldayoff what he can do with the team that Kevin Cheveldayoff said that he believed in and wanted to bring back. It's too early to say that question has been answered. So we need to have that question answered before you have that conversation. I'm not saying I agree with them having done that, but I'm saying now that they've made that decision, Rick Bowness and his staff deserve the opportunity to try and get the best that they can out of this lineup. Now, I'm not ducking the question, SK. Give it 20 games. If the Jets are kind of where they are right now, 25 games, then I'll say it right now. It's time to start having that conversation. If the Jets can't make it work with a new coaching staff, and I think, I don't know how many people saw it, but our opening in that last game against the Colorado Avalanche, if you take a look at the Jets' results since 2018, they've gone consistently down every year. The graph that we showed on that, it was kind of surprising to me. I know it felt that way, but there's no way to put it any other way. The Jets have got worse every year after 2018, and it has mostly been the same lineup and most definitely for the most part the same nucleus that has been getting those results. So 25 games into this, if we've got a new coaching staff and there's still nothing new, I don't think there's any way to determine this in any other way than it's the player, it's the makeup of this team, and that has to be addressed. And that's when we'll be talking about it, and that's when it's time to pass the ball to Kevin Cheveldayoff and say, it's your job to try something else now, because the coaching staff have tried it and they're getting the same results. So again, I just wanted to make sure SK and anyone else out there who has questions and wants us talking about the issues that mean the most to them, we're not ducking this question. I don't think it's time to have this conversation. That said, 25 games from now, based on where the Jets are, this may be the most fascinating conversation that we can have this entire year with the Winnipeg Jets. Ken, before we go, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope. Another fun day. We got the cleaners are going hard with the leaf blower. Time to get out of here.
You bet. No doubt. Okay. I want to thank everyone. Again, this is a great example of just how the crowd is constantly adding to our show, building our show, making our show what it is. We've said it before. The chat room is the secret sauce to this show, and it's one of the reasons we love being here. We love it when they're taking the piss out of us. We love your comments. We love being challenged. It's great. Absolutely love it. We also want to say thanks to our sponsors. I'm going to say it once. I'm going to say it every time in this show this year. If you appreciate the conversations that are being had in this space, in this town, please appreciate and support our sponsors who make this happen, because these conversations wouldn't be happening without that. So thank you to Trans-Canada Brewing. Thank you to Vittorio Rossi Clothiers. And, of course, thank you to the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group. Please support them. And if you do, go make sure you tell them that Kenny and Renny sent you. Thank you so much. We will see you after the next game, everybody. Enjoy what's left of your Saturday night.